In this video, I kind of want to set up a very simple way to automate the process of building and kind of setting stuff up. Now, this is going to be very simple, so it's more so showing you ways you can do it and speed things up that you might not know about, as well as we're going to compile for Windows and Linux on a Windows machine. So that's pretty simple as well, but most of this is going to give you a rough overview and kind of entice you to tweak some things of how you might want to set this up so you can build your plugins for, say, an update and all that kind of stuff a lot easier and faster. So first thing we want to do is, if you're going to be cross-compiling with me for Linux, is you need the cross-compile toolchain. So you go to this page here, or just Google Unreal Engine cross-compilation Linux. You should be able to find this as one of the first things that pop up. But scroll down, find the engine version you want, and download the cross-compile toolchain. So once you've done that, here's my plugin that I want to go ahead and set up. We're going to create a new folder to actually do everything in. So I've already created this folder here, and the only thing that's in it is this. And as you can see, it says hold open. That's because it literally just is used to launch another bat file, which is the one we're actually going to be working in, but it'll keep the command line window open, so that way we can scroll through, and instead of it, closing after it's finished, we can actually go through and read, while it has. So first things first, let's go ahead and create a new batch file. So I'm going to do just build 5.3 as the name, and empty it out. And then the hold open one, I'm going to have it labeled as build 5.3.bat. So that way this launches this. Now, this part's optional, but it's quite useful. Now, first thing we want to do is we want to find the path to our Unreal Automation tool. So if we go to where our Unreal Engine is installed, find your version, we're going to go to Engine, Build, Batch Files, and here you can see the Run Unreal Automation tool. So we're going to copy that path, paste it in, and we want to have the last part be run uat.bat. So it's going to actually execute the Unreal Automation tool. Now here we can see what commands there are. So in this case, we're doing a plugin, so this will be a process very similar if you want to do something else. But if you want to find them, you can just do -list, save that, and I'm going to run this guy here. Did I not type that in right? Build 5.3.bat. That's because this is not .bat. That explains it. I'm going to do that and change the extension type over. Now this should be good to go. Okay, so now if we run it, let's see, it generated a pretty decent list for us, but we're going to scroll to the top. And here's what we want to see. So all the stuff related to build. So here you can see we have build game, and in our case, build plugin. So we want to run with build plugin. So what we're going to do, change out the -list with build plugin. And now we want to get an idea on what all really it is, and what arguments can be passed into it to control how we want to build. So we're just going to do -help and run it. So once we have that, here you can kind of see it gives it a description of what all it does. So build the plugin and packages it for distribution. So the parameters that's going to take is going to be -plugin, which is going to be the path to our actual uplugin file. Then we have our host platform, which I will cover once we get the basics set up. And same thing, we'll cover target platforms. And finally, package. So this is where we're going to kind of stop at. So this will be the path in which we're going to be building the plugin to. And then engine directory can be discarded because of how we're actually executing this. So we're going to keep this open. So we want to first just handle -plugin. So what we're going to do is change -help to -plugin, and we want to give it the path. So we're going to set that equal to our plugin path. So that's going to be this guy right here, and it's going to end with skg copy paste .u plugin. So skg copy paste .u plugin. Simple enough. And then whether or not we want to do our host or target platforms, which we don't care about currently, we're going to move on to -package. And that's going to be where we want to actually place it. So in my case, I want to go to this directory, and I'm going to actually create a, we'll leave it here. So we're going to paste the directory that we're currently in, and I'm going to add a new folder, and I'm going to call this skg copy paste 5.3. So that way I know the engine. So we have our Unreal Automation tool that we're launching, telling it that we want to build a plugin, and the arguments we're passing on is going to be the directory to our U plugin, as well as the directory of where we want to package the plugin to. So let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. All right, so right off the bat, I got an issue with, go to parse. Maybe I corrupted that when I changed it. One moment. Okay, so yeah, I broke my U plugin. Basically, I had my plugin allow list outside of the module, and it's supposed to be inside of each individual module to tell it which platforms each module is for. So anyways, that should resolve it. So let's go ahead and run it again. All right, so it seems like we're good to go. Plugin building for host platforms 164. And the other thing to note is by default for this one, I do have it set up so the allowed platforms are going to be 164 and Linux. So it should build for both, but that's going to be after this is finished. So I want to pause it real quick and I will see you in a minute. Alrighty, so this took roughly, I don't know, I'd say a minute and 10 or, not even quite a minute to 10. So I'll just say about a minute. So pretty much what ends up happening is, let me find where to start. Unfortunately, everything gets plugged up. So here's where I mentioned the host platform that we're going to cover. So focus here, we have building plugin for host platforms 164. I'm on a Windows machine, obviously. So it goes through and actually packages everything up. It creates all the binaries and that kind of thing right in this chunk here. So moving on, here we actually, I guess you could say, compile. I'm not really sure what to how to like verbally separate these two. But here's where we move on and we start actually building for Linux. So you can see here, building plugin for target platforms, we're doing Linux and then Windows. So we start, go ahead and package it up for Linux, move on down. It's very hard for my eyes to actually follow. And then somewhere farther down, we'll actually start building again for Windows. So not sure where the start is, but actually, so anyways, so we built for Linux and then we built for Mac. So we're building for all platforms, and that's not something well, at least I necessarily want. I prefer to build them each individually, as well as I don't really care because when we go to publish plugins, we don't provide the binaries, so there's no need to actually have them in there. So with the host platform, in the world is it? Here it is. So when we build for the host platform, that actually creates, you can see it creates the binaries folder here for us. And that's not what we want, because otherwise we're going to have to delete them and all that every time, as well as it does take quite a bit longer when we build the plugins with the host platform, well, because it's creating the binaries. So we want to skip that process. So what we can do is we can open our batch file, and here we want to go ahead and we want to specify how we want to build it. So if you recall, I'm going to do build plugin, and I'm just going to do -help. So I can view them up again. Actually, I might already have that open. Do I? Yes, I did. So here we have our plugin, and then we have our host platform. So we want no host platform. So we, as you can see here, it prevents compiling for the editor platform on the host. So I want to do -no host platform. Then moving on, I don't want to compile for Linux and Windows at the same time. I'd rather keep those completely independent of each other. So we're going to look at the target platforms. So here we can specify a list of target platforms to build, separated by the plus symbol. So you can kind of see here, so 132 plus 164. If I wanted to do, say I had 3 platforms, Windows, Linux, and Mac, and I only wanted to do Windows and Linux, I would do 164 plus Linux. So in our case, we only want this one to at least be 164. So we're going to do target platforms, and we're going to do Win64. Okay, go ahead and save that, and let me actually delete this first so we can start fresh and run it. So let's go ahead and we'll give this a minute. Okay, so by comparison, that one took honestly less than half the time roughly. At least it felt like it. It felt like it honestly probably took about 15 seconds. So we're good to go. And if we look a little bit closer, You can see there's nothing stating about building for the host platform. Instead, we just have building plugin for the target platforms, Win64. And here we go. So here we have everything provided. Intermediates, we have our Win64 right here. And now let's go ahead and create, I guess, one for Linux. Do hold open. Here I'm going to do build 5.3 -Linux. And then same thing down here. I'm going to rename this one to build 5.3 -Linux. Open them both in Notepad. And change this one to launch build 5.3 -Linux. And this is now going to have the target platform for Linux. As well as we should also do, is it Linux? I think it's ARM64. So I don't think it'll build that one by default, but I'm not 100% sure. But actually, no, I don't think it does unless you specify when you're doing a individual target platform. If you're doing all of them, then yes, it does. So go ahead and run it. And I will see you again in a minute. Okay, so that one's done. And we can see if we go to the top. Here we are. So building for the target platforms, Linux, and Linux ARM64. So we are good to go. If we go ahead and view it, go to Intermediates, Build, you can see we now have Linux instead of Win64. And we are, well, done. So that's a pretty simple way, and obviously you can automate this farther by, prompting for user input and just have some kind of, I should say, fancy launching bat file, but I know next to nothing about the language and how to use it. So anyways, that's going to be all for this video, and hopefully this was helpful to at least someone.